Joseph educated me. He was like, yeah, he's like, usually in a good market, you should be getting around 8 to 10% transactions out of your sphere of influence based on the total number. He's like, in this market, you should be getting 5. We figured out Jason was at 3. And so, and it's funny because his goal, that extra 2% exceeded his annual goal. And so he was on track to do 8 transactions. If he were to get the rest of that, 2% for himself, it would have exceeded what he was trying to do for the year. And so in my mind, I was like, wait a second, like real estate agents, they have this leads, they're working one lead source that is giving them business, but they're not
Right.
really squeezing as much juice out of that lead source as they can be. And so, and then that's what makes them be like, all right, cool. Well, let me now go get Zillowflex, or let me go get, let me add on another lead source before actually extracting as much as I can out of this one. And
100%.
so, yeah. And so, like, sphere of influence being I want to say, the main lead source that every single real estate agent is trying to extract from. I'm like, all right, cool. Let's get all the data on it. Let's get all of the fundamentals on how to do it. Let's get all of the um basically like I want to say like the tech side, like what to do in the CRM for it. And so yeah, so I basically just want to ask like questions around that. The first question is, and then both you guys jump in whenever you guys, whenever you guys want to. Um, the first question is like clearly defining that sphere of influence. Like who's in it?
Yeah, I think
So,
we both have we have we have probably different answers that will come together. Like I
Mm,
think
mm,
Lawrence does a really good of coming from the perspective that is the furthest away from me, and then I have a different answer. So I think together we have a pretty comprehensive answer. My perspective is your database, your sphere of influence should be everybody who knows you.
mm,
And that doesn't necessarily mean that they know your name. They recognize you. They're like, I know that person. They need to be in your database. And that also means that you may not know their name. Oh, fun. But that's where you start putting in the work to start building and deepening those relationships. But if you're, out and about in the world and someone sees you, they recognize you and they're like, hey, you,
mm,
that's someone who belongs in your database.
mm, mm,
And I know Lawrence has a way more robust answer around that, but that's my like overall theme around who needs to be in that database.
mm,
so what I really do and really focus on is, the thing that's always on my hip, always next to me, right? Phone, right? I make sure everyone that's in this thing is in my database, right? Even if I don't talk to them, every year, I want to at least touch on one of them one time a year. So if I don't talk to them physically, in person, over the phone, via text, I want to at least make sure I'm getting them on email, or I want to make sure they're at least seeing my information on social media, right? So everyone that's in this thing is in my database.
mm,
Now, outside of that, people that I don't talk to, like let's say I go to the grocery store, the lady sees me, you know, 3 times out of the week because I constantly keep going to the grocery store. My wife gets upset by that. But the lady at the grocery store constantly sees me there. She doesn't know my name, right? But I make sure like I wear shirts like, hey, top top things to do before you purchase a home. Number one, contact me, right? I
mhm.
make sure they see these different brandings. I have my Luxury King Realty, my logo, my branding. They'll start getting to know and seeing my branding. Eventually, those leads that's not in my phone will be shortly in my phone.
Mm.
So that's what I mainly focus on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you hit on 3 things well, I believe it was 2 things that like because I want to actually get into, which is basically contacting them and then how to get more people into that sphere of influence. But first, like, so let's start like the output of your sphere of influence, which is that 5 to 10% of transactions that you're supposed to be getting from your sphere of influence.
Mhm.
Like, first of all, Joseph, like, is there like a study around that, or like, how did you come to that 5 to 10%?
Yeah, there's several. A lot of this is like National Association of Realtor data,
Mm-hmm.
as well as several large coaches, your Joshua Smiths, your Tom Ferry. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of data around your database, but a lot of the more recent data would point to anywhere from 8 to 10% return
Hmm.
on the sheer volume of people in your database should be transactions. The challenge is in a market like this one, where there are far fewer transactions, we've seen that number still with a really healthy database, a great relationship, great communication plan around it, you're about 5%. So it's definitely come down.
Hmm.
So what does that mean? This is why agents are having to go back to the fundamentals of prospecting and think about it. Like everything, this is why databases are so important, or your sphere of influence. If you think about door knocking, open houses, cold calling, what you're really trying to do is proactively go and make new relationships. And then you're trying to put them into a position where you can stay in touch with them. And so you're basically building your database in all of your other prospecting efforts. So if you think about that, then you have to understand that your database, your sphere of influence, and the entire approach thereafter is the crux of everything for your business. So this is where agents make a lot of mistakes where they're like, I'm going to be a cold caller. I'm going to be a door knocker, open house, or, all the above. But they don't put in the time, energy, effort to build out their database, have a solid communication plan, and carve out the time to execute on that. And then they go do all those other things. What they're doing is they're creating like a bucket or a basket with a big
Hmm.
hole in it.
Hmm.
So if they don't get lucky and capture someone, they just fall right out. So the entire focus, approach, and execution of staying in touch with your sphere of influence or your database is the net. It's what
Hmm.
holds everything together. So you drop people in and you're building a bigger database.
Hmm. What's the biggest issue around, and you may have hit on it, so I'm sorry if this is repetitive, like this question. Like, what's the issue around agents putting people in the sphere of influence? Like, why can't they put more people in there? Or what is there any sort of problem around doing that?
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's what a lot of people think is a ton of work. But if you're not one, if you're not using a CRM, you're pretty much gone at this point in this industry, right? You
Mhm.
really need to have a CRM. You need to have everyone that's in your sphere in your CRM, right? You need to keep good notes. And the problem, I think, with a lot of agents, what they do is they'll start dealing with a potential client or just someone they met out, out and about. They don't get enough information, or if they do get enough information, they don't input that information into their CRM,
Mhm.
right? It's in their head for a brief second, and then next day they forgot. Hey, she told me her kid's birthday. I totally forgot, right? Instead of putting it in your notes right then and there, when we talk, oh, okay, just casually put it in your notes and then input it into your CRM the next day, or when you have that time carved out to work on your sphere of influence, putting that data into your CRM and constantly doing it. I think it's a problem for a lot of agents. They don't really hone in on that more than
Mm.
anything.
Yeah, and then a lot of the work just comes in, you know who your people are. I think most agents can start the business and know their family, their friends, their professional relationships, like their dentist and their attorney, whatever. The problem is they don't take the time to organize and put those people into that database.
Mm.
Now, that's just the most fundamental beginning. Then what they really should be doing, remember, this is about you started with the question, who should be in your database? And my answer was everyone who knows you. Well, those people don't come top of mind when you think about it. What you traditionally have to do is carve out time and really start to think about, if I have a friend from high school that I've known most of my life now, who else do I know around that person? Well, maybe his parents. I have a friend in mind right now. He has a brother and a sister. Like, those are people that I need to have in my database, because if we cross paths, today, they're going to recognize me and they're going to go, "Hey, Joe." Those are people that need to be in the database. And this is what I mean by taking work. that just doesn't naturally show up in your CRM. You've got to sit down, you've got to literally put pen to paper, write out a name and be like, who do I know around this person? And more importantly, who knows me? And we got to get that information down. And some of those answers might be brother. Yeah, I don't even know the guy's name anymore, brother. And that's okay, because now you know when you touch base with that friend of yours, what's one of the top questions you're going to have for him? Hey, man, what's your older brother's name, man? I haven't seen that guy in years. Boom. Now we're starting to build out.
Mhm.
That's where the
What's
work comes in.
Yeah, what's the difference between a sphere of influence and a database? Is there a difference?
I mean, I think people just interpose those or transpose those statements around them all the time.
Hmm.
Let's just put it this way: the people in which you have some kind of relationship with, that's what we're talking about. And I
I got
would
you.
argue
Right.
that, like, my opinion is your sphere of influence is just what it is. You
Mm,
have some kind of relationship and therefore some influence, which is a whole bunch of people. Whether or not they actually make it to your CRM, that's where they become your database,
mm,
right?
got it. Okay.
But
Yeah,
that's
cause
just that's not like any kind of like official definition by any means.
yeah, because it seems like from what you just what I'm getting from you guys, like it seems like your database is just everyone within your CRM, and then you have this one section that's like segmented to your sphere of influence. It sounds like that's what it is.
If people are leveraging a CRM correctly, then absolutely they have the ability to segment out exactly the people in which they have relationships with
Mm,
versus, let's just say, the 2,000 leads that they've been purchasing through, Facebook ad spend, Google pay-per-click, where they're still trying to reach these people, right? That's
mm,
not the same as your, sphere of influence.
yeah.
Sphere. And in our CRM, in most CRMs, I think they actually have a tab,
Yep.
sphere of influence,
Mm,
right? Or
hmm
SOI,
hmm
that you can drop those people in so you can separate, hey, these are people that came from Google and Facebook and all the social media that have no idea who I am, right? That I
mm,
paid for. Hey, this is Joseph's cousin and little brother from Rancho Cucamonga, right? Or from Riverside, right? They just purchased a home with another agent. You have data for those sphere of influence, and then you have the people that you purchase cold leads from, right? They don't
hmm
have any rapport with you. So
hmm
that separation is going to be key more than
Interesting.
anything. And that's
Is
going to take time.
there got it. Okay, so wait, so okay, so is there intention around filling the sphere of influence, or is that just like a one-time thing? Like, because I'm trying to understand like how somebody becomes a random person to a really great relationship to now they're in my sphere of influence. Like, yeah.
I mean, I think it all starts with a business plan up front, first of all,
Mm,
right? And Joseph, he pretty much trained me on this.
mm,
Getting that business plan, and part of your business plan is who knows you, right? Who knows you in this thing? Who knows you outside of this thing? Who's around you that knows you? Write those people down, right? After you get those people down, now how much do they know you? Right?
mm,
I'm actually giving them a grade A through D,
mm,
right? A's are people that know me, going to constantly talk to me, day in, day out, and know that I'm a realtor, use me for business, like my videos, shares my content, all that stuff. Your D's is, hey, this looky loos.
Yep.
mm.
Most likely not going to use you, but they're clicking and watching your videos and all that good stuff, and everything in between kind of sums it up for that. But I
Mhm.
think the starting point is having a good business plan in place, and in part of that business plan is going through your database that you currently know, your sphere you currently have at that time. Once you have that, I think that's a good starting point.
Yeah, yeah, because the next question I was going to ask is like, does how many is a real estate agent supposed to be putting into their SOI, either daily, weekly, or like how they even get to that number? And it sounds like the business plan is that answer to where they
That's
figure out
exactly
overall goal and then figure out how they're going to attain that overall goal through which lead source. And this is like the Joseph in the business plan. I believe it's that what is it? Proactive and reactive
reactive
lead.
lead
Yep.
generation. That's
Yeah,
exactly right. Yep.
yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, because you want to make sure those lead generation activities are producing the number of opportunities to feed the, the metric of that relationship, so that you're getting either the appointments every week or month, you're getting the transaction starts, meaning like a new buyer client opening an escrow or a new listing, which will ultimately lead to the lag indicator, which is closings. So
Yeah.
yeah, that all gets broken down through that business planning session. But let's go back to the sphere of influence, because you asked an interesting question, like how do they become someone that goes in there? And like I said, they go from just some random stranger to someone who knows you in some way or shape or form. That's the really easy way, because the database is meant to do two things, right? And the strategy or communication around it. Number one, to deepen the relationship. And number two, to remind them of the relationship.
Mm.
Now, a lot of people make the mistake that they're not familiar with how to do number one. So instead of just peppering them with 50,000 emails and text messages, if there's no effort to deepen the relationship, that could cause issue. Now it's an annoyance. The second thing is, all you're doing is constantly reminding them of the relationship that you have with them. Do you want to remind them of that relationship? That's a question you would have to answer. And if not, then what are you going to do to enhance that relationship so it is a positive reminder?
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
And so forgive me, I'm gonna ask some like I want to say like dumb, like fundamental questions just because I don't want to assume anything. And so um what is the negative consequence of just having an unorganized database where you're not categorizing anybody?
Oh man, there's a lot. The biggest pain point that agents are going to feel is seeing transactions within their sphere of influence that they didn't have a part in.
Mm.
That's the pain. That's the one that they feel the most.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Say that one
That's
more
the one
time,
that
bro.
hurts.
Say that one more time.
Yeah. Like the number one pain point of not having either your database built out, properly organized, or you communicating with them is that you're going to have transactions happen within that sphere of influence that you're not a part of. And
That's for
believe
the
me,
people in the back. They couldn't hear
that, yeah, that hurts. You don't need that to happen very often for you to feel it.
Yeah,
That's
and believe me, I've felt it several times.
Mhm.
So that's why I wanted him to repeat it, because that is a major factor right there.
Mhm.
Finding out that someone that's in your sphere use someone else and possibly close a massive deal that you didn't, follow up on
Mhm.
or didn't
Yeah,
know
that's
who you were.
The ones
Right.
that, I mean, like, again, there's going to be people in your database that have other relationships, that have other preferences. And,
Yeah.
you're always looking for a way to add enough value where they give you either an opportunity to work with them, or they give you a referral. They're like, hey, I've got my uncle, and that ain't going to change. But hey, I got a buddy over here that's looking to buy a home. Why don't you work with that person? I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can win with your database. The
Mhm.
most painful transactions that happen in your sphere that you're not a part of are the ones that when they come up, they're like, oh man, I totally forgot
Mm.
that you're in real estate. Or I had no idea that you work this area.
Mhm.
Those are the ones that hurt because they were there for you. You weren't trying to circumvent the uncle. You were just being a secret agent and didn't know it.
Mhm. Yeah, usually you find those out on Facebook when you see the post of, "Oh, just bought my new home," and it's like your
Yeah.
sister or something like that.
Yep.
Definitely. And that's that, you know what? That's like, that's the
Yeah.
crushing part right there. When you see it on social media, you're like, oh man. And
Yeah.
that's where that light bulb goes off. Like, I need to make sure I carve out that time in my schedule every single day to make sure my sphere of influence is updated. I'm tracking it, right? And I'm actually doing the follow-up steps too, finding out, diving deeper and making sure that I have more information on each person in my sphere, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
To just take me further and further. Kind of like what Joseph said, like if I know Joseph's brother, I want to know his aunt, I want to know his daughters, his sons, right? I want to
Mhm.
start building that relationship even further out,
Mhm.
because there's going to be a link somewhere down the way that I don't want to have broken. I
Mhm.
want to keep that link going, right?
Yeah.
I look at that method as longevity, right? So I'm
Mhm.
not going for the big deal right here. I want to go outwards, and my business is going to keep expanding, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So I think that's like a perfect segue into then the like how do you create that like when you said that I think about like a spider web to where you're
Mhm.
just like hitting every single, piece of the family tree, if you will. And so what does engagement look like with that sphere of influence? Do you guys have any like strategies around staying in front of them? Like how frequently?
Yep.
Are you calling them, texting them, email, dinner? Like, how are you guys engaging with this sphere of influence?
Yes. And I really mean that. So
Yeah.
you nailed it. I look at a real estate business in this context of the database like a tree.
Mm,
How big and healthy is your tree going to be when the roots are few and they don't run deep?
mm,
That tree's not going to grow to some big, gigantic, beautiful, healthy tree.
mm,
What do you need? You need a ton of big roots that have a lot of little connecting roots, right? Those roots need to run deep and they need to run far and they need to have a bunch of other roots coming from them. That's how you have a big, beautiful tree and a big, beautiful real estate business. So I often talk about having close to a 50 touch point communication planned around the database. And this isn't, I mean, that sounds like a lot, but it's not that hard because remember, a lot of what we do as far as systematic touches are things that can be automated. Those are not going to do the job number one for you. Job number one, as I said, is to deepen those relationships. It won't do that, but it will remind them of the relationship. And this is that top of mind part. Okay. So the automated touch points are going to remind them of you and the relationship. And again, that may not always be a good thing. So you got to know what's your relationship with this person? Are there opportunities to deepen and better that relationship? You need to know that. Automation won't do that for you.
mm,
So I make it easy. Literally, like, here's 47 touches. Are you ready?
mm,
An email a month, a text message every other month, um, a video message to them once a month, a market report of their market area um, every 21 days. That'll be 17 a year. All right, right there, we have 47 touches.
mm,
And then where do the rest come in? Face to face or voice to voice,
mm,
because that's where you are the only person who can really drive job number one, which is to deepen the relationships.
mm.
Yep.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, that's what I think about when I think about like that sphere of influence. I think of I don't know why like the million-dollar real estate agent shows come to mind when I think of sphere of influence. Like when you see these guys always at dinner, they're always at brunch, they're always somewhere with somebody. It's like a developer client or it's somebody.
Sure.
In my mind, I'm like, oh, what they're doing is they're deepening those relationships with them, and it's in a genuine way, obviously. And so they're not just like sitting there like oh, how's everything going? Okay, so you have any referrals for me? Which brings me to which brings me to that next question of like, how does a real estate agent bring that up? Like, how do you even, I want to say, yeah, I would just ask it. Like, how do you even ask that question of like, hey, do you have any referrals? Do you know of anybody that's looking to buy without being that, that agent that's kind of like, oh man, this is the reason why he called me?
Yeah, I think Lawrence can really answer that, like in the inception of the database, really well. Um,
Mm,
Share with them, Lawrence, what you do when you first build the database and start that engagement.
So mainly when we start with obviously I want to go kind of switch back really quick to Joseph about the tree and the deepening the roots. That is something that's key in this business. However, you're the person watering that tree. You're deepening the roots by that water, right? So every day, day in and day out, making sure you're constantly watering your tree, right, and deepening those roots by following up, right, by contacting them. So hey, I'm reaching out to you. Cameron, and I'm talking to you. When I call you, I want to make sure first I get the business side out of the way,
Mm-hmm.
right? Hey, Cameron, hope all is well, man. Just really quick, who's your favorite real estate agent? I'm going to ask you that question, and it's going to be a pause for me, right? And you're going to
Mm-hmm.
probably say, Lawrence, you are
Mm-hmm.
great. I just wanted to make sure I'm your favorite real estate agent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm going to carry on with personal. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to talk about, hey, I just want to see how things are going in your family. How's the kids? How's school going? Your wife's good. Yeah, you're going to take your wife out this weekend anywhere? I'm going to take
Mm-hmm.
my wife to such and such park. They got a big event over there, blah, blah, blah. I'm letting them know that there's other things besides just the business side up front. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to end that call on a personal note, asking about them, how they're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
When they hang up that phone, they're going to have a better their feeling inside is not going to be like, oh, Lawrence just called me for business,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if I switch that around and I ask them about their family and how they're doing, all that stuff, and not being genuine, and I ended on a business call, that's all they're going to expect. Because that's the last time that's the last thing they heard from me is business,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'm leaving that call on a personal note, feeling good. It's about them, done. And I'm genuinely asking, hey, how's everything going? They may say, hey, Lawrence, we're not doing great. We're actually, thinking about selling the house. And I didn't even ask him about selling the house, right? I asked him,
Mm-hmm.
who's your favorite realtor? But in personal, they're gonna tell me more. Or
Mm-hmm.
hey, Lawrence, my cousin, I meant to call you because my cousin actually has been looking for a realtor. I didn't even ask him for business, right?
Mm-hmm.
My cousin's been looking for quite a bit of time. They dealt with a realtor they're not happy with. Do you think you can help them? Right? Oh yeah, sure, no problem. That's great. Just send me the number, but I just want to make sure you guys are good and everybody's healthy. Finding out more about them personally and ending that call on a personal note is going to be more powerful than starting the conversation on a personal note and ending on a business note.
Mm-hmm.
More, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Interesting.
I think it's a really important thing that we have to understand the possibility of perception, like what the different ways in which someone could perceive, a conversation. And if someone can walk away going, wow, me and Lawrence talked for 15 minutes, or Joe and I, and he asked about the family and the kids, and I'm walking away feeling like the only reason he called me is because he wanted to know if I had someone to send him business. You don't want that. And the entire conversation is probably authentic. You really meant it. You care about that person. But if you end with that, you could literally give them the ability to go, huh, he didn't mean any of it.
Mm-hmm.
You got to flip that script. It's not an easy thing to do, right, Lawrence? I mean, it's a little awkward. It's just not our natural approach. When we get on the phone with someone that we know and like and want to connect with them, we tend to connect. Make it a habit of, if that is a call, or if that's a conversation asking for business, asking for a referral, which there needs to be peppered in. Okay. But when it's time for that conversation, get to that first. Just do it. Get to it. Because the beauty is you get to it and they're like, no, I don't have anyone. I don't, hey, anyone at work, anyone that you can think of right now that could use some assistance with anything that they need real estate wise. Because I want to be a resource. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, man, I don't have anyone right now that I know thinking of buying or selling. And then you turn around and have a 15-minute conversation with them about things that they care about. I mean, they're going to walk away being like, man, that guy really does care.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's really hard to flip that around.
Mm. That makes sense too.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it's so unnatural to do, but you have to practice it. You have to be very cognizant.
Mm.
You get there immediately. Then you transition to the things that you were going to talk about anyway, and they are authentic to you.
Yeah.
But that way they can't spin it in their own minds. Wow, we had a good chat, and then he asked about business, and then he was off the phone. Like he didn't care about any of that crap before. Don't let that happen.
Yeah. 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 Um, are there any metrics that you guys keep track of around engagement?
Um, I mean, the CRM tracks that for us. I mean,
Mm.
again, I want to make sure that I'm touching people. And here's what's interesting. If you organize your database correctly and you have them prioritized,
Mm.
then you know who you need to be touching. If you're running low on time, if it's, you know, you're crushing, but you need to stay engaged with people, you know who your top clients are, and you pour into the top ones first. Okay. So that way they don't fall by the wayside. All right. But I always like to make sure that with the 47 touches, there's also at least, I mean, we're talking minimum 4 either face-to-face, voice-to-voice throughout the year. That's like the minimum. My A people, they're going to get one probably at least once a month. I mean, we're probably talking every 2 weeks. But there are also people that are closer to us. Sorry.
Yeah, and also on those A's, those A client, you know, in your sphere, those A's, those are the people that you're going to make sure you customize your videos for them directly, right? You're going to take the time out to make sure, hey, Cameron, just want to wish you a happy birthday, opposed to, hey, it's Lawrence King with Luxury King Realty, just want to wish you a happy birthday, right? Instead is, hey, Cameron, happy birthday today, man. I hope you enjoy your day. There's a difference, right? So my D's may get, hey, Lawrence King with Luxury King Realty, they're getting the brand, right? We want to wish you a happy birthday. But now they're remembering me, right? Even if they don't know me, not going to ever use me, they're going to remember me that I remember their birthday, even though it's automated, right? However, those A's are getting those custom videos. They're going to feel more like, okay, he directed it to me directly, right? A lot of people know AIs in effect, and they know sometimes these things are automated. So for your A's, your B's, even your C's, sometimes your C's, customize it. Takes 5 seconds, right? And Joseph knows, I mean, I customize almost everything for my A's, from home valuations to happy birthday for them, their kids, all that good stuff. Like I even go to the extent of, you know, sending the A's, their kids, like a digital Amazon gift card with a video of me, right? Hey, little Susie, I just want to wish you happy birthday, right? But I'm sending that to that A client, the parents, and they're like, oh, wow, he customizes just for little Susie.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't use this all on Roblox. Make sure you break it up a little. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yep.
And Cameron, think about this. I know there's going to be people watching this and going, man, that's nuts. I don't have time for that. You have time for it. It's just, it's not your priority.
Correct.
It's that simple.
Time blocking.
Yes. If this was that important to you, you would organize your day, your week, your life so that you are engaging with these people. And I'll tell you, in my perspective and in my business, this is the most enjoyable aspect of real estate. When you are actively adding value to the people that you have some kind of relationship with, you see that relationship expand or deepen, and then business comes from it. Like there is so much goodness that comes from that. But again, you have to be aware of who you need to touch, and you have to be willing to put in the work to add value to those folks and have conversations with them and demonstrate that level of care. You can't, sit in your office all day and from afar just love on people, which I know some of us do, and that's not wrong or bad, but they don't know it. It's not going to deepen the relationship. It might deepen how you feel about them, and there's nothing bad about that, but that's not going to ultimately lead to a healthy database. Like Lawrence said, you can love that tree standing there all day long, but if you don't add any water to it, it's probably not going to be very healthy.
Yeah. Very interesting. It seems very simple. Like I thought there was going to be a lot more that came along with sphere of influence, but it seems like very simple. It's just make sure you are time blocking to the point where you're actually dedicating time to organizing and managing your database, filling it up with the people based on whatever sort of lead source that you have, and then organizing it based on I want to say like the depth of the relationship. Maybe that's and then consistently engaging with them. And so,
I mean, in the 50,000 foot level, it is simple. On the boots on the ground level, it gets far more complicated, nuanced, and again, it's work. Cameron, it takes time. Like if you have to understand when you're building out your database, there's a lot of the creative mind that needs to be involved, right? You're remembering people and names and how did I engage with this person? And so you need to carve out some time. You can't just throw 30 minutes on a calendar once a day.
Mm.
because that's not enough time for your brain to start getting really dialed in to that task at hand. When you need to be creative, sometimes you need to kind of double and triple that time block because your brain, your whole focus needs a little time to get there. But once it gets there, oh man, you can pound out a ton in a short period of time. But again, you just need to put in that organization, you need to put in that effort. And there's a lot of nuance behind it. The 47 touches that are automated, that took time to find a campaign that made sense for me. Um, Kind of tweaking it so that it was in line with my communication style and how I want people to engage with me. Now, don't spend 2 years trying to build out an email campaign because that's a waste of time. On the same token, because you have to understand, in email to the database, the job for the email is for it to show up in someone's inbox and go, oh, there's Joe again, delete.
Mm.
Yep.
And I'm good with that. That's a win. All I wanted them to remember is me. Oh, there's Joe. And remember, it's reminding them of the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want it to be, oh, there's Joe again. You want it to be, hey, there's Joe. And then they delete it. It's done its job. But if they open it, it better not suck.
Yeah.
Okay. It's gotta have
Better
some
have some
content, some
value
value.
to it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Better have some value, right?
Um, yeah. So what is so like okay, so like what is can you give me an example of an email that sucks
It
or
could be,
the opposite of an email
yeah,
that's
it
valuable? Yeah.
it could be an email that has a subject line of like, I don't know, um, kitchen decor, but it's talking about like, dark oak cabinets from 15 years ago, right? Like make sure that your stuff is up to date.
Yeah.
Um, don't talk about how great it is right now because interest rates are at an all-time low.
Mm,
That's not relevant content. So, or, things that just really don't align with you. I'll give you an example. I'm not a fashionista, a fashion person. I'm not a fashionista. I'm not interested in stilettos. Like that's just not me. And I'm not saying that's wrong or bad, but it's inauthentic. And if someone opened that, I'd be like, that's a really weird email from Joe,
mm-hmm.
like promoting, like, I don't know, like a fashion designer or something. Like, make sure it's cohesive to you. That's a bad email if that's the case.
Mm,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think a lot of agents base everything off of automation. And a
And
lot of
what's
time,
easy.
yeah, it's easy, but it comes off like, hey, that's not Lawrence. That's not
Mm,
that's not how he interacts with me, right? So
mm-hmm.
it comes off not genuine. And that's where I think a lot of people, a lot of real estate agents drop the ball of making those emails that you're sending or text messages you're sending to your sphere. It makes it look like, is that really him?
Mm.
Right? So now every email and every text after that, it's they're second guessing.
Yes. And again, it's going to
Yeah.
remind them of the relationship. Is the relationship, this guy throws a bunch of crap at me that he doesn't even know what's happening? That's not a good reminder.
Me and one of my friends, like he lives out in Santa Monica, like I get excited when we're about to go see him.
Mhm.
And so it seems like that's your sphere of influence where you're like, hey, let's go, go out to dinner, let's go to brunch, let's go take the kids to the pumpkin patch during Halloween or whatever it is, or you're throwing your own event for
Sure.
for Halloween or whatever it is. And so it's like it's kind of like that fun time to engage with them. And it seems like it's accomplishing both of those things where it's like you can have that quick conversation of like, kind of like joking around or however your personality is like, hey, remember I'm a realtor, right? So if you ever hear anybody talking about buying or selling, like, just let me know. And then you just get on with the, what event or whatever you guys are doing. And so it seems like it can be an enjoyable thing, especially if it's around, I hear often agents they start to dive into their niche. Like there's like I know a lot of guys are like car enthusiasts, so they go to the Ferrari shows, they go to
Sure.
the Porsche shows, Mercedes, things of that nature, and they're just networking their butt off with a bunch of people there. And so it's very interesting. Has there I think one of my last questions would be like, is there any sort of like creative ways to keep in contact with your database that either both of you guys do or you've seen other successful real estate agents do?
Yeah. Lawrence, you want to go first?
Yeah, so basically for me personally is I got to be a good listener, right? When I'm dealing with any of my past client or when I was dealing with my clients in the past, got to be a good listener. Like Cameron right now, you like Santa Monica. You have a friend that lives in Santa Monica, right? What's your friend's
Mm,
name? Right? I
mm,
know you like going to Santa Monica. I'm looking up events in Santa Monica for this weekend. And I'm going to send that to you, right?
mm,
Then I'm going to say, hey, your friend Joe, has he looked at this event in Santa Monica? Right? Now you may be into cars. It's a car event in Santa Monica. You love Santa Monica. I'm making sure my information and I'm being a good listener that I'm putting to you directly. I'm going to make sure you get that. And hey, your friend Joe, make sure he knows. Hey, does he own a house out there? Is he renting? What is he doing out there? Oh, he's renting. Blah blah blah. He's been there for 20 years. Great, right? Now later on down the line, hey, Cameron, hey, send this to Joe. Tell him that this new program is coming up. If you ever thought about buying, I'm not sure, but if you ever thought about buying, you got a down payment assistance program in Santa Monica alone. It has this, and this. All right, take care, man. Hope all is well. Right, something quick and simple like that. But I'm making sure I'm being a good listener more than anything. Sorry, go ahead, Joseph.
No, no, you're spot on, dude. That's the law of reciprocity. We all want business, we want referrals. Why don't you give people what they genuinely want? And sometimes it is to be cared for someone to listen to them, and for someone to like genuinely be interested in helping them. And that's what Lauren just demonstrated. Because if someone did that, like Lawrence did that for somebody, you don't think that they're going to want to figure out, like, man, Lawrence is awesome. Like, what can I do for Lawrence? That's just a natural human instinct. Law of reciprocity is key. Here's another one, though, because this is where I think a lot of agents get sideways, and I get it because this has been true for me too. We have lives, man. We have kids, in some cases, we have families, we got, family obligations. I got birthday parties like crazy certain months of the year, like every single weekend, and sometimes like two in one day. It's difficult to carve out time for our people to go and spend time with them, especially if they're, 45 minutes away or what have you, right? Like it gets really challenging.
mhm,
But there's this really magic technology. I don't know if anyone's heard of it. It became really popular during COVID, and it's called Zoom.
mhm,
What might it look like if you reached out to someone in your database and like, hey, via text even, hey, I know like you guys are super busy. I see your son at karate events and that's awesome, man. But I miss you. Would it work out if like one evening we could jump on a quick Zoom, 15 minutes? I just want to see your face. That's it. And you know how much more comfortable people are with that. They could jump on, maybe you guys each have a cocktail in hand or a coffee in the morning or something just to engage, just engage. So
yeah,
that could be a really powerful way to leverage technology. But again, the whole idea is deepen that relationship and stay top of mind. Okay. That's
mhm,
a really good way to deepen the relationship in a truncated period of time. I mean, shoot, if you could knock out one of those a day, you'd have a really healthy database
mhm,
ongoing.
Right.
yeah, yeah,
And here's what I'll tell you, there's so many different modalities of engagement. Okay. Letters
mhm,
can be great, like having a stack of, you know, thank you or thinking of you cards. I've got a few different ones right here at my disposal. Okay.
mhm,
That could be a great way to go if it's just part of your process. But look, at the end of the day, I'll tell you this, when it comes to your database, just be consistent. I don't care what it is. That's going to move the ball forward versus you taking 2 months to figure out what card, what to write. And then, you finally get it done once. And because in your mind, it was such a big overhaul, you're like, man, I'm not looking forward to when I have to do that again. That's not building consistency. Do something that'll build consistency. Okay. Because if you do that, that's going to, deepen the relationship faster, make it stronger. So really focus on the things that are going to be far more easy for you to begin doing and stay active doing. But you do have to carve out time to make these things happen.
mhm,
So don't kid yourself around that. It's not like, oh, I know those guys know me, like we're good. No, they they may forget. They may not realize you work an area. You know, and this is where a lot of agents are like on social media all the time about how they kill it and they crush it and they're in their cars, right? And they're so amazing. And then some of their like distant friends are like, well, I got another buddy who's like just starting real estate. I know this guy over here kills it, right? He probably doesn't want to mess with, one of my referrals. So why don't I just give it to that guy? Be very cognizant about what you're putting out there and what messages you're delivering because you don't know how they may be perceived. So be aware.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask about kind of like the opposite. So like I was asking questions around real estate agents, just getting their database started and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But how do you in the last 5 minutes, how do you scale a database? Like you're closing 50 deals a year as a single
Yeah.
real estate agent, and you're starting to get that database up into the high hundreds and low thousands. Like how do you scale it and consistently deliver relevant content to everybody in it and stay up to date with it?
Yep. Well, I think this is where you need to rely on some of these touch points that we talked about, like that video. Okay.
Mm,
That
mm,
video. But then the other part that I think is going to be true in any type of scale is how do you prioritize the people who should have the most amount of time spent on them?
mm,
And if you don't continue that prioritization going forward, then you're going to start missing the mark.
mm,
Lawrence, what do you think about the scaling part?
My A's.
Yeah.
Organizing your database and knowing who your A's are and knowing that's priority. That's number one. Taking
mm,
care of that. I don't care how big you get your database. Your A's are the most important. That's the low-hanging fruit. Those are the people that's going to give you more business and keep driving your business to scale even more. So I
yeah,
think that's going to be more key than anything.
yeah. Your ride or dies. Those are
Yep.
Yeah.
those are
I
the
mean,
yeah.
that's your primary, that's your bloodline right there. That's the
Hmm.
bloodline of your business, your A's,
Hmm.
right? Going out prospecting, looking for leads or buying leads online, that's great. Those are not that's not your business. Your sphere of influence, your A's are going to be your top ones. They're going to drive your business even more and more and more. And the deeper those roots go, B's are going to become A's, C's are going to become B's, and keep driving it from there. So,
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
the last thing I'll
Awesome.
say about, as you continue to grow and you want to scale, you need to evolve. And most people have a really tough time with evolving on their own. It tends to take a village. This is why we have certain coaches here at the Alliance to help our agents continue on that growth pattern.
Mm,
What it takes for you to start your sphere of influence is dramatically different than what it looks like to scale it. And if you've implemented some strategies that have been really healthy for you for a couple of years, they may not continue to work for you ongoing. You need to create change. You need to make sure that you don't become wallpaper to the same people every time.
mm,
This is why we have Lawrence King. He is our sphere of influence coach. So that way, yes, there's a million ways you can approach your database or your sphere of influence. And you don't want to do a million at once, but you want to know what's most in line with me right now. And then with someone like Lawrence, have that guidance of going, okay, well, I know in the future when it's time to change it up, he's going to help me with some of the strategies and making those tweaks so I can continue to be relevant. I can continue to hopefully be exciting and I can continue to garner attention from my database. So, and this is true of anything else that we always talk about. We need coaches. That's why we've created the Alliance. That's why Lawrence King is my sphere of influence coach.
evolution, right? You got to evolve over time. I think when we first started, Joseph, it was those letters. Then we
Uh-huh.
transitioned to emails, then to text messages. Now we're on video,
Yep.
right? That we evolve over time. And I think you constantly, each year, I mean, every year I change my happy birthday videos to my lower parts of my sphere. But even my A's, I change that video every single year. I make something different. Just evolve. You got to
mm,
evolve as an agent and showing up to different coaching hours within the alliance, different things, different niches that people are coaching on within our group. This is what makes us powerful in our sphere of influence. We take those things and add them to the sphere of influence and change and evolve over time.
Were there any questions from the
very
internet
nice.
today or no?
Yeah, it's very interesting because as I'm like going through and like actually looking up questions in like Facebook and Reddit, it's like everything you guys answered. Like this guy said, do you have a written plan for how you handle your sphere of influence, when you contact, how often, what you do for them, how you sort them in your CRM? This other lady said, brand new real estate agent, what are some good ways to start having those real estate conversations without sounding salesy or desperate?
Mhm. That's it.
Um,
I'm going to go back to
uh,
number one though, Cameron. Let me address that.
mm-hmm,
He's asking he's on the right track, but that's a very fundamental thought.
mm,
Yes, you need to build out your strategy of communicating with your database,
mm-hmm,
but that's not where it ends, because I promise you, written strategies go in a drawer to be forgotten about.
mm,
That needs to show up in your CRM and in your calendar
mm,
digitally. So that will show up for you every day. You decide the plan, you program the things that'll help you, and then now they're programming you in return. So
mm-hmm,
you get to be you, and you show up every day to the right spot, and it's like ding, ding, ding. Here are the 3 things that you need to do today because you haven't talked to them for a month.
mm-hmm.
So you
Yeah.
need to get past the idea of just written plan. Then it needs to be integrated.
Yeah, because this other one, it sounds like she's doing exactly what you guys are. It sounds like she's asking all the right questions. So like this girl said that I'm a brand new agent, just signed up with EXP. I'm excited to approach my sphere of influence and let them know I'm officially licensed. What are some good ways to start having those real estate conversations without sounding salesy or desperate? I attended a fundraising event over the weekend and saw a lot of people that I know and love. I feel like this would be a good opportunity to follow up with everyone that I saw that I know. How should I go about it? Should it be an actual phone call, a text message, an audio message, a direct message? And what should I say exactly? Also, should I target the SOI first, or should I start with total strangers like FISBOs and expireds and geofarming?
Yep. I think the answer to the last one is yes. Again, do
Mm-hmm.
both, but you need to shore up your ability to deepen relationships, stay top of mind to people. Who can you do that with? Your database, your sphere of influence. So that way, when you go and get new leads, you're just growing that engine over time. You're growing that tree over time.
Mm-hmm.
So, if there's more people in it, there's more results that'll come from it, right?
Yeah.
But let's go back to another interesting thing that she asked. I think it's important for new agents to be really clear about what they are, right? Don't go on social and all of a sudden like, oh, I'm the best real estate agent that's ever existed, because like you got licensed yesterday. But that doesn't mean that you can't get business. But what you probably need to do is make sure that you're properly aligned with people who can support you so that you
Mm,
can go and create a whole mess of opportunities, but have people to support you through it so that you do a stellar job of with your clients. This is the equity in their home, or this is the biggest investment they'll ever make in their life in most cases. You got to perform extremely well every time. Now, that's the gap. So what do? You make sure you're properly aligned with people who have a vested interest, who are truly willing and are going to be there to support you, so that you're not hanging on the vine or making things up along the way. Okay? Because that's a number one way to really poison your database.
mm-hmm.
So I would say you get out there and you chat with them, but and you let them know I'm new to the business, but here's the professional team. You don't have to necessarily be on a team, but here's the team of people around me
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that my evolution is not only immediate, but it's a skyrocketing ship. So I'm ready. I'm
Mm-hmm.
ready for you, because I've got with me, X years of experience,
Yeah.
okay, supporting you. And it's
Yeah.
me. You trust me. The other thing that I think is really important, and Cameron, you taught me this, don't ask agents, ask your database. Hey, database. Hey, people that I care about. I'm in this profession now. What are the things that you want to know about real estate? What are the
Mm-hmm.
things that you want me to engage with or offer to you? What's the information that you find relevant? Stop asking the agents, because you're going to get boilerplate. Go ask your own database. They're going to give you specific